Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to get folks a chance to get logged in and join into the webinar. We just went live here. We're running a few minutes late. Apologies. We had some technical difficulties, but we're getting up live. So apologize. We're running a few minutes past the hour, but we'll get started momentarily with the Back to School Safely: How You Can Improve Student Safety and Incident Response webinar, presented here by ManagedMethods. We'll get underway momentarily. Want to give folks a chance to get logged in. Again, apologize. We're running a few minutes behind schedule this morning due to a couple technical difficulties in our streaming setup here with our hosting provider. But we're getting through it. I'll have some individuals joining me momentarily who I'll be introducing, and we'll run through a quick, brief agenda to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is David. I'll be your host and moderator for the next 30 to 45 minutes or so. And we appreciate everyone taking time out. I know it's a busy time of year. A lot of folks are running hectic these next few weeks as school gets underway. But today is Thursday, August 3rd. I'm coming to you live from the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, just outside of Denver, Colorado. The home base of ManagedMethods is in Boulder, Colorado. And so it's good morning still here and to the folks on the West Coast, and good afternoon to the folks out in the Midwest and the East Coast and Southeast that have joined us this morning and afternoon. I'm joined by my friend Jose here from Untitled Chapter, who I'll have him introduce himself and his role here momentarily. A couple of housekeeping items, though, as we get started with today's session. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, so don't need to worry about taking screenshots and too many crazy notes. You will receive a link to the full audio recording by Monday. Usually we say within 24 hours. Of processing, but being that today's a Thursday, I know some members of my team are going to be out of office on holiday, a little vacation tomorrow. So we're going to say by Monday. Usually it's within 24 hours, but I'm going to tell everybody, let's say Monday this go around. So by August 7th, we'll have copies of the recordings out to you. If you do have any questions as we proceed forward through our conversation today with our guests, please submit them into the chat, the QA panel. And as attendings, you are all muted, but feel free to ask your questions, of course, in the chat and QA panel. Excited to see some of the folks in the audience. I recognize some of our folks out there as customers, and so thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to put a little call to action out there to some of you that are in the audience that are customers. Feel free to chime in. There's a couple of you that know ManagedMethods very well, so feel free to chime in with our in terms of put it in the chat, and we can bring your conversation points up. So with that said, I'm going to pause for a moment. I'd like to start out with just a basic introduction. So if we could have our two guests here join us. We have Jose and Kyle, who both are representing education organizations out there. So why don't we start first, Jose? You can introduce yourself on the West Coast, and then we'll go to Kyle, who's clear on the other side of the country and out on the East Coast. So we'll go introductions first with Jose.
Great, thank you so much. So yes, my name is Jose Mendoza, and I am the IT systems manager here at Sage Oak Charter Schools in Southern California.
Kyle.
Hello. Hey, hello. My name is Kyle. I'm the IT manager for the Windsor Schools here in New Jersey. We're a special needs program where we take behavioral and cognitive needs and then we take those from the districts and try to provide them with specialized instruction.
Very good. Well, Jose, Kyle, thank you both for joining us. We're glad to have you with us, and this is a timely topic, a very important topic to have this discussion on, because it's impacting schools more and more. As we get ready to go back into session. I guess first question for you, Kyle, is your school a year round, or did you have a summer break and are you getting ready to start back up?
Yeah, we're year round. We have a extended school year that which we're almost 2 weeks away from completing, and then we also have a regular school year.
Okay. How about you, Jose?
Yeah, we operate on the main school year. We do have a small summer program, but our summer school students don't. There's very few that attend that. It's mostly just a typical September through June.
Got it. Okay. All righty. Well, I'm gonna right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop sharing the screen. We'll come back momentarily to the screen shares. So let's first jump into the topic we're here for. So for those that are joining us in the audience today, we're going to do a little bit of a roundtable chat with myself here with Jose and Kyle. And then I'm going to have one of our senior product specialists, Mr. Charles Mogen, who's here on the call with us, give a demonstration of how Managed Methods plays into this space and helps schools with this topic. So again, thanks for joining us, Jose, Kyle. We got both sides of the country here represented. I'm sitting out there in the middle, somewhat in the middle here in Denver, Colorado. Again, for the audience, my name is David Waugh. I'm one of the founding team members here at Managed Methods, and I lead our sales and customer service group. I have also on the call with us Emer O'Shea, who's part of our field marketing organization. She's the producer right now behind the scenes. I feel like it's somewhat of a podcast radio show. So let's just kind of dive in. And this is the focus: back to school safely, how technology helps improve student safety, incidents response, etc. I'll just go back and forth on these questions, and I'll ask you, Kyle first, and then Jose, you can respond, and then we'll reverse it. From your perspective as technology leaders in your organization, why is technology important? Why is it an important part of your district's safety and mental health programs? So we'll start with you, Kyle.
Yeah, so obviously with the move, from everything from going to Chromebooks and Google for Education and all those resources now that it provides us with the ability to the students are still going to do the same work, but now everything is online. And when there is a problem, the reason actually I went with Managed Methods is because I noticed that students were using Google Docs as a chat. So even though we have chat blocked and everything, because I actually came on as an IT specialist during COVID, and then so when we finally got back in the schools, I got to see firsthand, children talk to each other through Google Docs, or maybe even writing a Google Doc just on their own drive, but then they might have like a mental health emergency or self-harm risks or anything like some aspect like that. So as far as the safety on that end, since just because due to our program that allows us to at least have an insight now, whereas before technology we would have no idea they would be calling for help, but now at least we can see that. And and then that allows us to look at and notify the counseling and admin team. So it's a big help, even though plus the convenience, but now we get to see the insights to the student, what they might be struggling with.
Got it. So visibility that maybe you didn't have before, because as technologies come about, it's not necessarily
the old days.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I know. And obviously I'm aging myself, but back when I was in school, it was if you got caught passing a note, and gosh, if you wrote something really bad in that note, you're going to get in trouble for it. Now those notes are digital footprints, if you would.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jose, from your perspective, how is technology an important part of your mental health program and safety?
Well, for us, it's definitely really big deal, because in our scenario, we've had students using a one-to-one program really since the inception of the school. So in our case, our students don't come into a physical campus; they're all from home, and that's how we've all been even before COVID.
Okay.
So in our sense, as I kind of thinking, as a lot of other organizations are having this issue as well, where you bring on the technology because it's wonderful and great, and you can do a lot of great, wonderful things, but security and all of those elements that could bring on, that's kind of sometimes thought of as an afterthought. And so then you run into issues where you can have a lot of these conversations and the like going on, or a lot of tendencies that students are doing in their searches or whatnot, that we don't have the systems in place to pick that up, to detect, hey, you might want to look into this issue. And so now for us, last year, our students, we with Managed Methods fully running in the background of our equipment, and we did have some situations that did came up, and so that was really helpful, because then we were able to make sure that the right people were alerted, took the right steps, because the nice thing is that right there you have the whole track record of all that's going on. So it's important because it lets students definitely know, hey, everything you're doing online, there's going to be a footprint, and we're going to be able to track what you're doing.
Right.
And so for one sense, it's be careful what you're putting out there, but just in the other sense, it's very critical for us on our part to be able to assist those students who they might need some coaching, some guidance, some assistance if we see a constant trend start to build up.
Got it. Well, and that's valuable information that you both have shared, because, and I'm glad in your case, what you shared, Jose, that we were there to help be a part of some of those remediation situations. And that's obviously, that's become part of the playing field, I think, in all school districts now, is with the technology stack that we have out there, and the fact that in these cases, there are virtual users, there's people in classrooms. But, as we learned in some cases the hard way throughout the pandemic, traditional legacy network-based security solutions, firewalls, perimeter, secure Wi-Fi's, et cetera, those are merely a blocking point to, say, the internet, for basic, kind of filtering, but not necessarily full end-to-end visibility and inspection. And obviously with Managed Methods, our approach from things is looking at it all the way from the browser all the way down to the file sitting in Drive or OneDrive or the mailbox, and seeing everything in between. So,
and that becomes critical for us, because in our scenario, because we're so remote, we don't have physical servers on site for people to go onto. So all of our stuff, it's all up in the cloud. So having some kind of a server infrastructure where there's security on those, yes, I understand. I've worked in that kind of environment before. I know how that goes. But when it's all up in the cloud, there's the great benefits, obviously, to that. But then you also have the difficulty of, like, oh gosh, how are we going to block students from being able to just add whatever stuff they want onto their Google Drives? Because that's, for us in our scenario, as our students are on the mostly Chromebook based now, that's where stuff is being stored. And so how do we keep that safe?
Well, and that's a good segue. So Kyle, I'm going to shift to you, come back, Jose. So what type of student safety issues have you seen come up in your students' environments, whether it's, say, in email, whether we're looking at Google Gmail or Microsoft Exchange in the Azure cloud, or whether it's in OneDrive or Google Drive? What kind of issues have you come across, Kyle, that Managed Methods has helped expose?
I think the main one I knew the day we were not finally, but I knew it was the day was going to come that it paid off, was a student, he wrote a Google Doc just to themselves. It was almost like they're just writing, almost like in a journal. And then Managed Methods, was able to pick up that there was a lot of self-harm, language and risk in there. And so that's when I forwarded to I called the counselor right. We have that team, so I notified the admin by email, and then I called the counselor right away. And then they were able to pull that student out and then talk to them. So that's the first major, that wasn't even that long ago, but it was the first major time when I knew that really paid off, because luckily our student population is pretty monitored, but in the high school, as they get older, they have a little bit more independence, and there's not always, we have a lot of one-to-one aides, but as in the high school, they get older and they have, they have that personality where they're more independent. And then that's when I don't know what's going to go, what's going to be in Drive. So right now we haven't had too many incidents, but just that one major one really helped. Really knew that it's like you have to, even though it's almost like a volcano. I think there's a term I learned when I was in the military, that it could be really quiet for a long time. It's like a volcano type of a situation, but you wait for that one, and then you have to be prepared for it. So So that's what it's just sitting there watching. So it's good peace of mind. And then also just another one that I've been using a lot is not necessarily, it could be for safety, but even when students start uploading large files, like why is it? What is it? Is it a video? It's most likely a video, and I'm able to find that right away and check it out before it becomes a problem. What are they storing on Drive that I'm not aware of? So that's one, it's one piece of even in that way, because it leads to safety, because I don't know what they could be uploading. But if it's something big, usually I don't know why that is. It's just usually it's something probably they shouldn't be uploading to Drive.
Whoops, I had my mute button. Yeah, that's a great one right there, Kyle. That I know that Charles will highlight, and we talk about all the time that storage is always a sensitive topic, and it's become more so obviously in the last few years with Google customers, because now Google is charging for storage if you're greater than 100 terabytes of pooled storage. But even in the Microsoft world, people from the Apple world, no matter, there's different parts of the country that have rules that make them hold on to things, and then there's other places that are like, well, we got to purge things. And just like you talked about that's a great telltale indicator, like, hey, why is a student have so much storage, or why is something being, why is there this all of a sudden this extremely large file that comes into the mix? Because like you said, it's usually an indication of content that's in a media format, whether it be video, movie, audio, etc. So certainly, that's just an interesting, catch from your point to see that. Jose, what are some of the indicators? What were some of the things that you either brought ManagedMethods in to help with, or ManagedMethods brought visibility to your eyes about this is an area that we're having some student safety issues?
So on us, it was particularly with student email, students being able to email outside accounts. And the thing is, ManagedMethods was able to, we had a policy in place that allowed it to flag us and let us know, hey, there's some questionable content going in this conversation going through. And another difficult thing in our sense, because our students, we call it independent study, which is our fancy word for it. It's somewhat of a homeschool. Parents do a lot of the education, but we do still have teachers in place to make sure that students are following meeting the state curriculum, state mandates, and all of that. But in those scenarios, students sometimes still have to communicate with outside vendors, and sometimes having a good structure of which domains to allow through it can be a little tough, especially when some of the providers and vendors, they're just Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts for some of these. So it can be a little tough to know, do we just let them open to everybody? So structuring that can be a little difficult, but at the very least, even if we have to open it, in some cases, we at least have those policies in place so that stuff still gets through. As it has a few times, we were able to definitely work on that. And so that's definitely the big area where it's helped out. Also in some other parts, we've been able to even put in some filters on the ManagedMethods side that has allowed us to block staff from sharing out files through what's called the link share. So the great thing about that is that it makes sharing a lot more restricted. So then staff have to be a lot more careful with how they're sharing those files out. So that has really helped us out in quite a bit. And it comes into those policies that we've been able to put in place. You're muted.
I did it again. Sorry, the mute button. I'm going to come back to you, Kyle. Thanks for that, Jose. I'm going to throw this out question to both of you. Third-party apps. How has third-party apps been, I guess, handled in your world pre and now post having ManagedMethods in place?
Oh, well, for me, I always had a strict policy on. Actually, I don't. Now I'm thinking about it. It might have been after my first ManagedMethods consulting a call I had. where I decided to lock all the third party, or lock the ability for even staff or students to add any, or use their Google credentials to associate with any third party apps. So then after that, I've locked it down even before the new Google policy came out. And then, but now the good thing was all the existing ones, Managed Methods was able to scan, and then they could say, well, what's trusted, what's not, what's questionable, what's in that middle ground. And that was great, because to scan through all those third-party apps that were installed even before my time was a great resource. And then since then, I was almost like, I got to stop it in place, and then going forward. So I was able to clean up and go through everything. So actually now with this new Google policy that's coming out for October, it's actually, I went through it last night, just happened to be, and I was already there. I was like, oh, everything's been already culled, and I'm already in a good spot. And that's because Managed Methods was there even before Google, was making us make sure we comb through it.
Got it. Good. Jose, how have you been tackling the third-party app side of things?
So on the third-party apps, I would appreciate it's a little less than a year ago, I think we started, Managed Methods started to do some audits, just some free audits, going through those systems and saying, hey, these things are enabled, we should probably lock those down. So very similar to Kyle, where it was helpful to go through those and see what are we allowing through. And then when you see that list, it's actually very daunting and all of that. And you really think, okay, what do they actually need access to? And one thing we're actually in the process of doing on our site is creating a policy and procedure, so that when someone does need access to an app, or a student requires an app, or someone needs some kind of single sign-on to an app, we'll have processes in place where we review those to make sure that we know what they're opening up that access to. So that's been very helpful. We have some other audits that we go through, and where we check those as well, so that we know which apps that we're allowing that access to, and what those apps are going to be doing with that data once we do allow that access.
Got it. Well, yeah, the third-party apps conversation is going to be heating up in the next few months. Definitely a big area that impacts student safety, wellness, mental and social, emotional, and everything, because a lot of third-party apps that came onto the scene and have found their way into our school districts that have no business being there. So that's, of course, certainly a big topic, of course, and very important. So let's move along here. At a high level, what is the process? Apologize. Sorry, all of a sudden there's a very loud noise in the background here. Sorry.
I think I'm muted.
Sorry about that. At a high level, what is your process for working with school and student resources when an incident is detected? So maybe, Kyle, we'll jump back to you. So when an incident is detected, walk us through the process that you put in place there at Windsor.
Yeah, the moment I get a notification from Managed Methods, that's when my clock starts. So then I do a process of documenting first. I'll get the emails out, so at least that's documented in that way. And then I always make a phone call to the counseling team for whatever school or section it is, just to make sure I'm getting an actual person on the phone, to make sure, just so it's not an email where I don't know when they're going to receive it. I want to make sure I'm talking to somebody so they can go respond to that incident. And get so we're getting real time. I don't want to, there can't be, once we know about it, that's when the clock is almost ticking. And I want to make sure that one of the staff members that is in charge of handling student well-being and all that, they need to go and speak with that student. And then I also just send the email, just so it is documented. We have the timeline of when everything took place.
Jose, what's the process at Sage Oak?
Sure. So in our sense, we have certain clerks assigned to those. So we'll have, for example, student services clerk who will receive those messages. And so then, because we do have a different school, so then that clerk will be in charge of, okay, this just came through, I need to make sure to go that this goes out. But also we review those as well, because IT still still receives that information, so that we can verify that, hey, that this has been dealt with. But what happens in our scenarios that they send that out to whatever the administrators are, either the principals or vice principals, just to make sure that those situations are handled, and those students are worked with on whatever the situation may be.
So in both of your school districts, you're fairly small organizations, but yet you've got unique challenges, whether it be virtual, whether it be social emotional types of behavioral issues, maybe unique compared to other schools that are out there, but I think all schools face similar challenges. So from your perspective, and we'll stay with you, Jose, and we'll jump to Kyle, what advice do you have for other districts who are looking into potential vendors, or looking at just in general how to even tackle this? What should they look for with the technology and the partners that are out there? What advice do you have on that?
Definitely look to see what they're capable of doing. And I admit I'm one who's always a little hesitant on when I hear the words machine learning and AI. I'm not always that open to it. I'm always wanting to do some deeper research just to find out, okay, where is this information going? But I understand that that is how a lot of these systems will operate, in some kind of inputted things that they are trying to detect. So the important thing is definitely to, in my case, when we decided to go with this route, is know how your students are going to be how are they putting their output? Is it in web searches, and in those web searches, what system is able to detect it? How is it detecting what their trends are? What are their trends looking through? Let's say if YouTube is opened up, or Vimeo, the videos that they're accessing, that they can just look on in their lunch breaks or whatever it may be. What are they looking into? Because that can give you a good idea. But then there's also the possibility of, let's say someone is looking up weapons or drugs or something like that. Is that necessarily something to be really flagged, or is that maybe someone just doing a research project? So knowing the right policies that you can structure, that helps. And also knowing how those notifications can be customized, because if you have a system where you just get pounded every few seconds by tons and tons of notifications, it's going to be incredibly overwhelming. What you mentally just do is you check out, and then you make it, I'm going to put these notifications aside, put a filter on so I don't get them. And you don't want that. So you want to make sure that you have the ability to really customize that, and make sure you're still getting high level alerts that still require your attention. So definitely look into that, and looking to see what others are, what other districts are using it, and what are some of the scenarios where other districts have run into things, kind of like we're discussing here, where, hey, we have had an emotional situation happen where this system has helped us. So looking into those kind of situations, and how that service specifically applies to your district's needs, that's how I would look into that.
Okay, thanks, Jose. Kyle, what is the advice from your perspective now to others that may be looking into this topic with technology involved?
Yeah, I think the name of the game nowadays is with everyone, especially after the COVID times, and it seems like everybody, that was a big pick to get everybody on Chromebooks, and maybe Google services or Microsoft, whatever vendor you chose. But the name of the game is, I think, scalability, and to be able to customize or tailor the alerts that you need. Like Jose was saying, you don't want to get alert fatigue. So the great thing is, when you're looking for a vendor like ManagedMethods, is what can you tailor that policy alert. Maybe for managed methods, it is called policy alerts, but yeah, just trying to scale it because like I mean, I'm in a small school, so we only have around 200 students, but I can't imagine for a district of thousands of students, you know, there's only maybe 3, 4 to 5, you know, however many staff members on the, especially on the IT side, that may take these alerts in, or whatever users are designated to take alerts, you know, if they're counselors or and whatever staff members. But those policies need to be you know, I guess tailored to each school district's needs, and that's what it's about for me. So even though I'm on a small scale, I'm just one person. So if I can automate these processes and I get alerts only, so if I get an alert, I know it's something I have to look at. That's what's beneficial to me, and then I know it can just sit there in the background. I don't have to babysit it, and those are for any vendor. That's how I usually work. How is it scalable? And like Jose said too, I mean, we're wary nowadays of machine learning and AI, but it used correctly by the right vendor, it really can be a help, because you have to scale it. There's just no way staff members can monitor everything. You know, when that's out there, everything is connected. So you need a way for some service to monitor for you and then be able to alert you when you actually need it.
Well, and that's the big thing you just pointed out, when you need it. And I think you both kind of referenced that. I know, Kyle, you gave the example of like, you know, your military example. It's just like you have to be ever vigilant. You hope you never have to address it. But when you do have to, you need to make sure you have technology in place that's going to help you either be proactive or reactive. Well, let's just switch gears here. Let's jump over. I put a poll out there. Thanks for the audience members who answered. I put a question out there about student safety, student services. Does your district have teams in place, or is it handled by IT? Some folks said yes, we have teams in place. Others said no, and others said IT handles safety aspects. Why don't we jump over now to the product demonstration? We'll have Charles take the stage here and walk through some of these different scenarios we talked about and how Managed Methods helps provide this visibility. And then we'll come back to you, Kyle and Jose, for some thoughts on that and some additional commentary, and then we'll go to the audience for Q&A.
All right, excellent. Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Mogen. I'm the product specialist here at Managed Methods, and I'll be the one giving a little demonstration of some things today. I'm going to go ahead and hop right into it. I'll click into our Google environment just because there's a little bit more data in there, but things in both Google and Microsoft do look very similar, especially when it comes to our risk section here. And this is the home of where the data loss prevention side of things is, and more importantly, where the student safety side of things is as well too. So just a quick run through of a couple things here. You'll see first off a total number of active risks. This environment is our test environment, so a little bit noisier than a standard environment. Got some accounts of the most risk here. Definitely very helpful for finding those student accounts that do have more risk associated with it, especially students that might be having a long conversation around self-harm or things like that, or maybe they've created a number of documents or things like that. And then more importantly here are the actual enabled risks themselves here. And our primary self-harm risk scans are our self-harm machine learning model. So this is where we use a model to go out and look for the sentiment and context of things to try to analyze it to see if it's potentially self-harm. That model does a pretty darn good job of finding things. It really is good at detecting some more subtle things as well too. It's been trained on a lot of data over the years now, and definitely does a great job. We also do use a phrase-based model as well too, looking for those extremely concerning phrases via our self-harm strict model. And then we have some additional risk scans that do tie into the student safety aspect of things and that overall student wellness aspect of things. And that's with our toxicity risk machine learning model here. That's looking more for inappropriate language or violent language there, trying to look for those kinds of things. And then we also do have a risk scan that looks for adult or violent images as well too. But if I'm going to go ahead and I'll click on the self-harm machine learning model here and use that as kind of our primary example here. So when the platform sees something, this is what you'll see. Different entries here within the dashboard in the table itself here. So you get a name of what the particular risk was. In this case, it's an email subject line here. We've got what it got flagged as. There's a percentage score here. We'll come to that in just a moment. When did this actually get picked up on? And then who actually was the generator of this, or who was the sender or the owner of the file in that case. So, and then if you go ahead and actually click into this here directly, Things can also get flagged by multiple risk scans. So the risk scans work together. So if one of the risk scans sees something and there's another phrase in there as well too, things might go ahead and flag multiple things in there together. So you can see in this case, we have both our self-harm strict model here that's flagged something as well as the machine learning model. So both of those have gone ahead and actually flagged something here directly. In this case, you'll see there's the phrase there in bold, and that's the phrase in this case that the platform saw that was cause for concern there. With that as well, you're provided then with details on what's going on with the incidents. Who actually sent this email? Where did this email actually end up going? What's the subject line of the email? Did they attach anything within the email here? What domain was it originating from? So in this case, this district's domain here. And when was this actually picked up on? So it was picked up on picked up this morning here. And then from there, there's options to actually go ahead and download this, take a look at this directly. In this case, this one's pretty straightforward as to why it got flagged, but sometimes there can be ones that are just flagged by the machine learning model where there's just a risk level and risk score provided. And that's where the download button here or found here is very helpful in assisting in locating that information directly there and allowing you to dive into it and take a look at it more closely there. Also some options to ignore things here to clear them out after incidents have been resolved. You can take more additional actions there, such as actually removing things from the domain entirely after incidents have been resolved. I have seen that action used by districts as well too, where the situation is, it's something where there was some self-harm in there. There was something that was concerning. And after that, they decide at this point, we don't need that in our environment anymore. We're going to go ahead and delete that. We've resolved the incident here moving forward. Also, too, there's a section here to take notes on risks. So you can log what's been going on with the incident or the issue. And then, of course, said, hey, I followed up with so-and-so about this. Or if you do, we do have districts that opt to have principals or counselors that can use the Managed Methods platform as well, too. So they may go in here and log things as they're dealing with incidents and figuring out what's going on with the situation there as well. We also do have a false positive button. So while the machine learning models do an excellent job, they're not foolproof. Unfortunately, nothing is. So that's why we have this false positive button. So feedback can be submitted to us, and that information is made anonymous. It's randomized, and then that is used to retrain the machine learning models and improve their accuracy moving forward there. So then you do have the same ability to take those actions in bulk. So after incidents have resolved, you can go through and ignore things and clear them out that way, or take additional actions as needed. There's even ways you can label different things as well too. So if there's certain incidents where you want to make sure if someone else logs on the platform, they know right away that these are the most important or critical incidents, you could do something like that. Or you can also create your own labels as well too. So a tagging system that's found here within the platform as well too. That would be kind of an example of how you could go through and take a look at something like the self-harm, and that would extend to any of the other risk scans you'd see in here as well too. And more importantly, there's also then policies, which I'll come to here in just a moment there. But I'll go ahead and pause here, and I'll let Kyle or Jose jump in if they have anything they want to specifically highlight or look at as well too.
Yeah, there's got to be something that you guys are jumping out at right now from your experience in the tool. So let's start with you, Jose.
Yeah, the risks section right here where you can actually see the content in a chat or email, that's where it's been also really helpful for us. And I remember even one time a couple months ago where I even just logged in and there had just been it could be that the alert may have just gone out, because I did notice there's a part where you can see a chart of the risks, and as I saw that there was something flagged, like something spiked, and then I saw that there was a conversation being had between students, and I made sure that people were alerted and that issue was dealt with. But that's a very, very incredibly helpful tool.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. This is where I initially wanted Managed Methods was for the self-harm and almost in the bullying aspect, where we see it, even if I like the percentage, so you can see this, the percentage, and you still click through and you can learn a lot about how the kids are using Google Docs, or in our case, or the workspace. And but this is where I paid off, where we do have students who may display self-harm writings, and then we can notify the counselors, and this is where it is. We would never know otherwise. And then even if it was, sometimes you get the argument, well, technology, is it causing this? Or but if it was this is before technology, you just want to know. So at least now we know, and people can get notified. And if we're speaking just about self-harm, this is where I, this is what the winner is for me. But then I'm sure we're going to move on to things like PII and all those, which has helped me too, because a lot of data leak is a huge issue nowadays. That everything is like just like Jose, I don't have any physical on-prem servers anymore, we're all in the cloud. So so now we got to be careful of data leaks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, those are all issues as well too. And yes, we also do. Managed Methods also does have data loss prevention components as well too. It'll help go out there and look for things like social security numbers or credit card numbers, or really whatever else kinds of things you want to look at. The risk scans, one of the nice things about that too, it's very customizable. This is something that we assist our customers with. This is not how it looks in a customer environment. This is our test environment here. So we have lots of test examples of different risk scans and things, but just to give you an idea of how many different kinds of things you can have set up to look for different things within your environment, it is very flexible that way. And that's one of the things that is wonderful about the way the platform looks, is you can really pick and choose what you want to be alerted about. And every district and every environment is a little bit different on what kinds of things are the primary concern, or what sorts of things are that are going on out there. I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the policies. I think that's another really important section to talk about. There is how alert notifications are sent and how those are how you can have those go out. So if we go ahead and start with the very top here, this notify admin on policy violation is the overall admin who receives alert notifications. And this can be multiple people can be here, comma separated. And by default, those notifications go out every 4 hours. But with that, you can go ahead and actually speed those notifications up as soon as the platform sees things. And that's via this notify admin here. So if you want to receive those more rapid notifications right away, and those are sent out via email, they'll have hyperlinks back into the platform, so you can then dive into things directly and take a look at what's going on there. Additionally, too, you can also delegate out where those email alerts go to. So you can go ahead and say, oh, well, they're going to go to me still. I want to be aware of that, but maybe I want my counselor or principal or somebody else who might be assisting on the self-harm side of things also get those alert notifications that way as well, too. We even do have the ability to divide environments apart by OU structures as well, too. So we can separate staff and students, and you can have then staff in one environment there and be looking for things that way, or you can have students in a separate one where you have maybe counselors or principals or your student safety team directly interfacing with the platform and just having access to those areas. And then they're the ones that receive the notifications, especially in districts where IT isn't as responsible for the self-harm side of things. That's a common practice we see. But every district's different and everyone has different resources, and that's why we have different options for everybody available there. But these policies will alert and they'll be running there, and they'll keep an eye on things that way as well too, and give you an idea of, okay, here is something that's happened that is cause for concern that you may want to take a look at further there. So these are what the policies will do there. The policies are an excellent way to have those notifications go out, and they will go out there. They can go out there quite rapidly as well too. And I'll open the floor again if Jose or Kyle have any specific comments or things they want to highlight here on the policy side of things as well.
Yeah, from actually just what you said, we actually did. I don't think initially we had it separated into staff and students, but not too long after I signed up, we split them. And now, so even when I get the alerts, I can see which I think it's tile or the section it comes from, and yeah, that actually helps a lot too. So if I see a staff one and it may, I'd say might not need my attention right away, but anything student related, I prioritize those notifications for myself. And but like you said, like I do handle all the notifications, but bigger, larger districts are not going to have just their IT people. They're going to have staff that are users of this, and that's great. That's what it is for, and they can get the alerts directly when it's separated like that and have access to just what they need access to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on our side we have, because they go to like I said, our student services clerk, who then distributes them as needed. But we actually may be looking into we're just tossing the idea of around of having someone specifically to look into this, to deal with this, because it is helpful to have someone who's just focused on this, not just because of like saying management, this is a difficult system to deal with, not at all. In our district, we have about 4,000 students, which is about medium-ish, and so we do get a lot of stuff coming through, and just don't want to make sure that we have someone properly looking on here to make sure that there aren't any false positives and things like that, and make sure that things are moving properly. Because yeah, we do have, like I said earlier, quite a few policies in place that I know I worked with the Managed Methods teams, which we're really thankful for, because they really helped us break up a bad habit that we had of people just constantly openly sharing files from their Google Drive and allowing anybody to access them And so that became a big problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. Excellent. Well, I also want to make sure we briefly touch on to a couple other tabs here in the platform with the Gmail and the Drive file side of things. Those are two areas where you can launch kind of more deeper dive investigations, and the two areas I'm going to highlight here more specifically are going to be the live searches. So the live searches here are designed to allow admins to go in and do more deep dive searches and look a lot further back. These don't have an effective time limit. The really limitation is that they can't see things that have been completely deleted. ManagedMethods is not a backup solution, so we don't have those capabilities. But this can go in and help find specific emails or allow you to do deeper dives into specific users' inboxes. This is something that certainly can be helpful if there's maybe one self-harm incident going on or one sort of incident going on. This allows you to then do those deeper dives and see, hey, is there anything else going on that we may not have been aware of initially there? Is there anything else that we want to make sure that there's nothing else out there? So this is where you can then, I went ahead and ran a pretty simple search there. I just went ahead and did the last 24 hours here, and then I went ahead and looked at this just one inbox here. And this account is an account that I'm quite familiar with because it has lots and lots of data points in here and lots of things. And then with that, you then have the ability to come on here and take a look at the emails as a preview. So that'll open up the email as an HTML, so you can take a look at it directly that way. You then have the ability to pull the headers down on the email. So especially if emails are going externally or coming in from the outside, definitely really handy to see that information displayed here very quickly. Gives a lot of nice information that way as well too, including things like the email message ID. You can also pull the emails down as PDFs. So this is a very nice feature if you need to get the entire email, and if there's any images or things like that within the email, it does a really nice job of displaying that information. And of course, if it is a situation where maybe it's a situation with inappropriate behavior, maybe the email has a lot of inappropriate language or things like that, there's also options to come in here and actually outright delete the email. So you could delete it from this current inbox we're looking at here right now, or you could go through and say, if this email went to a bunch of people, I want to have the platform go through for me and delete it from all the other users' inboxes that might actually have the same email sent to them. So you have got some flexibility that way in taking advantage of that as well too. So definitely really handy though for looking through emails and doing those more deeper dive searches back a little bit further back as well too. And I'll hop over to Drive here really briefly as well too. And it's a similar idea here over on Drive as well. Lets you go through and run those similar kinds of searches, especially with files. This can be extremely helpful. Looking for maybe if there's an issue with students using files for example, HTML files are very popular when we run into situations with issues of people playing games or things like that. Or sometimes we'll see issues with things like audio video files where you have issues with students storing things that they shouldn't be. So for example, maybe they're storing recordings of the NFL season, or maybe they're storing movies or things like that. So that can be helpful in locating those kinds of things as well too. Areas where students are violating your acceptable use policy, and there's issues that way with what's going on. And then these files are things many times you'll be able to go ahead and come in and delete as well too. And then on this main files tab, that's where sharing is, of course, extremely important. And if there's issues with people sharing files in ways they shouldn't be, especially the to outside domain with the anyone with a link share permission type, are great ways to dive in and see what's going on there. Because this is an issue too from both a perspective of data loss prevention as well as on the student safety side and things. You want to make sure you know how people are sharing files and how files are being shared around. Students could decide for whatever reason to host copyrighted content and share that with a link that anyone can access. I've certainly seen that occur as well too. And then you have abilities to come in here and take actions to outright delete files, or even come in and just say, well, this is shared incorrectly. I'm going to go ahead and break that share permission directly here. And that's where then policies can be set up as well too to assist with that. Or you can come in and do bulk action. You can bulk unshare or bulk delete as well too. So lots of ways to come in here and help try to handle those kinds of issues. Well, again, I'll pause here and then open up the floor to Kyle and Jose and have them comment on anything, or if there's any specific parts they want me to hop back over to talk through those again as well too.
Well, I think as we jump over there to Jose and Kyle, it's important for folks to understand too that, and I've had questions asked me before, well, David, isn't this an invasion on, staff and students' privacy? And the simple answer is no. This is school issued technology, and we're only looking at the school issued technology. We're not looking at what people are doing on their personal Google account or a personal Yahoo or Microsoft. This is the school issued technology, and it's the responsibility of the school under the laws, not only the federal government, but many state governments, to maintain a safe and secure environment. In fact, it's just been announced that there's going to be a panel discussion of K-12 education leaders in the White House coming up shortly. It was just announced that this is going to happen because of the rise of cybersecurity incidents, and student behavior and safety incidents, staff behavior, safety. We really didn't even spend a lot of time yet looking into third-party apps. So, Jose, Kyle, from your perspective, before Managed Methods was in your world, did you have this visibility? And if so, how were you going about doing it, and how has Managed Methods changed that?
I mean, in our side, not at all. And so that's it's bringing to light issues that are there. That's nothing new at all. These kinds of conversations between students before were happening between staff. That it was happening, but we didn't have that controlled framework. And even in our sense, we didn't want to open the floodgates for students to be able to access a school Gmail, a school Google Drive, until we had this. And so that was really, really helpful for us, but it also opened our eyes to, oh my goodness, all the things that are definitely out there. And just like you said before, it's on that evasion of privacy idea. And the thing that happens is that typically most schools in my experience, have a policy of saying, and not just schools, but organizations in general, saying that any document created on our platforms, that's school property. So if a staff member creates any document, that belongs to the school. So obviously the school needs to protect it.
Yeah, I'm actually on the same, like David was talking about before, where, during our in-service meetings that we have throughout the year and at the beginning of the year, I actually try to go over it, because I've noticed now using Managed Methods helps a lot. But initially I had Google filters set up for, let's say, example, Bitcoin was a big one. I would flag that term, because usually anything that had the term Bitcoin in it was a malicious email. But now with Managed Methods, I actually can get more granular, and I can set up alerts, or I can even, when I audit myself, I can see the new trends and new things coming up. So when I go to these in-service meetings, this is something that maybe other IT staff may not think about initially, or they have experience with. But just like you were saying, if this was personal email, yes, it'd be a privacy issue. What I've discovered is that a lot of staff do use their work accounts like a personal email or personal drive. So this helps me identify that. So either eventually I can single out the person, or during the general staff meetings, I can say, I can see everything you guys are doing. These are staff accounts. You're not supposed to be doing personal things. So I would tell them about, I'd be vague, but I could say, I could see people talking about their weekend plans, or I can see people uploading personal files online. And I think it's almost like that fear is the best teacher to try to get them to move away. Like, Gmail is free, Drive is free up to an extent. You can have your own cloud services. You don't need to use the schools. And ultimately what that helps is protecting our schools against phishing and malware and ransomware. So we can try to almost like scare them in a way to move those behaviors onto their personal accounts and keep the work just for work. It actually, in the long run, helps mitigate any threats that could come, I believe. So this gives me the inside look to that.
Absolutely. And that's the first, kind of the first step in the safety side of things, is making sure that, we keep things separate, keep the bad stuff out, not things that are not appropriate content, because too many times, sometimes, what somebody deems as, hey, it's harmless, this is appropriate, it was just amongst friends, it impacts others. And then next thing you know, it's also becoming a SIPA violation or a COPA violation or something of that nature. So Charles, let's hit on maybe one last topic here before we open up the floor for questions, because this has become a very hot topic since, not only the pandemic times and more virtual app and more tech in people's hands, but then of course now there's been a lot of conversations around third-party apps, especially in the Google universe.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's extremely easy for people to go out there and sign into things with their district issued account. And a lot of times people don't really think about that. So that's where we run into situations. And one of the things we do in Managed Methods is we categorize applications. So as you can see, we've got a very extensive list of categories. One of those categories is explicit. Thankfully, we don't have any in this environment, but in a lot of environments, this is something we run into where there are explicit applications out there. This is where, unfortunately, we'll see things like an OnlyFans, ChatterBait. There's a bunch of these ones out there that do exist. They can be difficult to track down for sure, but someone will go out there, they'll go to the website and they'll just sign in with their school issued account. And usually it's students that are doing that. But sometimes we'll even see staff. We've seen some unfortunate situations with that happen as well too. Obviously, Google's going to be making some major changes when it comes to applications coming up here in October, where they're going to be, if your students' accounts are listed as under the age of 18, they're going to be they're starting to restrict applications. So I imagine we'll see, thankfully, less of those applications moving forward. But it's always good to double check and make sure, hey, what is out there? What are people authorizing? What sorts of things are they adding into the environment? Social applications are also a major problem as well too. Things like Reddit or Facebook or Twitter or things like that can be huge issues as well too, that you don't want your students using their district account for. There's an application more recently that that I'm very familiar with called Wiz that's out there. And there have been some very concerning news articles have been written about exploitation and things like that have been going on with that kind of application. It's sort of a pseudo dating application that it's a 13 plus application. So very young users have the ability to actually sign up for it. And well, the application's based in France, so they don't have to observe the same laws as in the United States. They don't have to pass data. So to say that the government or the FBI, if there's some kind of issue. So this is why these kinds of applications are so important to keep an eye on. And in the platform here, we have the ability to come in and break the OAuth tokens and help set policies to continuously break those OAuth tokens moving forward. But applications, especially that students are using and sometimes staff are using, can be huge issues there. And of course, very important to see who's using those applications as well too. So in this case, we can see, yep, there's a student account right there on Reddit. Well, obviously, we know Reddit might have inappropriate content on there, so it might be something. Hey, we want to go ahead and cut that access off there.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those conversation points about privacy, invasion of privacy, and some people say, well, what's the harm that I have a shopping app or my sports betting app installed? Again, we're only looking at the school issued domain and technology. And this is a serious liability issue for school districts today that, regardless if it's a school issued device or I install something on my personal phone, but I use my school issued credentials to install that, that's a problem. So like you said earlier, Jose is like, you go get a Yahoo account, go get your personal Gmail account, or I think, Kyle, you may have said, I mean, the point being is this helps as an education and a training tool as well, but it's also just about keeping stuff that's just inappropriate out. If it's not involved with classroom learning and, instruction, then is there really a need for it? Why do I need to have, the NFL app or Major League Baseball? I mean, is there anything wrong with those? Maybe not, but they don't need to be on the school issue technology. Do it on your personal tech. With that said, Jose, Kyle, and to the audience folks, I know we got started a little 5, 6, 7 minutes late. I want to open it up to the floor, for any final comments. Jose, Kyle, anything specifically, maybe even about third-party apps here. And then to the audience members that are still hanging out there with us, if you have any questions, feel free to throw it up in the Q&A. It can be questions for either Kyle or Jose or myself or Charles. So final thoughts. Kyle, we'll start with you.
Yeah, just to your point about the third-party apps, it's one of those things that the scope, like we're looking at right now, it might be a reputable site, like teachers pay teachers is very common. But what if teachers pay teachers gets compromised? What kind of scope, what kind of access do they have access to? So that's where I worry about. So usually I'm starting to the policy now where, any of these major, normally safe third-party apps and services that are fine, but they may get compromised one day, and then we don't want them to have access to be able to read or write, or even write to or read on Drive. So why do they need that? So if that is the case, if this service does need to read and write, well, then maybe they shouldn't be accessing it via the credentials, and they should just set up a separate login. And that's what I have visibility now. I can pull that away because the days are gone. We can't think that everything will be okay, because at some point, the real world is that these companies could be compromised, and we don't want that coming to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree on that. And we also use another third-party application to do a lot of our single sign-on in place of Google. So it takes place of a lot of that. And I've brought that up because you mentioned the teachers pay teachers, and we have them included on that. And so there are some good ways on that, but you still need to be very careful, especially when you're allowing any of those applications. I am glad to hear that Google is going to be reviewing some of those policies and making it so that not any student account can just go on to whatever app has Google as an authenticator. I get it. Companies use Google's authentication because, hey, you probably have two-factor authentication set up, so just use Google's. I get it, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that app needs to be included in the environment, or that our environment's data needs to be shared with that app.
And that is the right statement there. I mean, it's third-party apps unfortunately have become this new shadow IT that's infecting school districts that a lot of folks just were not even aware of. And again, it really, statistics showed that it exploded during the virtual and remote schooling that we all had to go through in our society during the pandemic times of 2020 and 2021. And as we got back into classrooms in 2022 and 2023, the technology is now catching up to try and find that stuff. Gentlemen, greatly appreciate your time. I'm seeing a clean slate out there in terms of the Q&A. Doesn't look like the audience has questions today. I shared my screen up there for our audience members out there. Jose, Kyle, I know you both are big proponents of taking advantage of our free audit, the free trial, because that's how you learned, what our technology could provide for you. We've been doing this from day one. We open up our platform for a free in-home test drive, if you would, not in-home, in-school test drive, where you can have our platform, analyze your environment, see it in action, determine if this is something that would complement your existing technology stack, maybe replace the things that you're doing manually, or maybe you're not even doing it at all. In many cases, we find that when people see the visibility we provide, they didn't even know this was available to them out there. So it's complimentary. You can scan this here or go to ManagedMethods.com, click sign up for the free trial, free audit. And the beauty is it activates in a matter of minutes. It's look but don't touch. You're not impacting any of your users. It's not putting anything out there on anybody's devices, and you'll get some visibility into what's going on. Very popular time right now to do this. A lot of school districts are like, oh, I want to wait until after, but most folks have found that, no, let's get this turned on now, catch that behavior as students and staff come back into the schools for the new school year. And it's amazing how many times people forget over the summer, what is acceptable and not acceptable use policy on their school technology. So Kyle, Jose, if there's anything that popped into mind that you want to share, feel free. Otherwise, greatly appreciate you guys taking time out. I know you're super busy because your schools are, still in session for year round, and now you're preparing for a new school year coming up. We greatly appreciate the time today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We've got the West Coast and the East Coast, and then I'm somewhere in the middle. So, well, thanks for being out here today, gentlemen. To our audience members, thank you for joining us. Again, sometime between now and Monday, we will get the final recording out there to people's inboxes, but we appreciate you being out here today. And as always, Mr. Charles Mogen, outstanding. Thank you for assisting in today's conversation. And if anyone has conversations or questions that you want to share, you can contact us here at Managed Methods. Just go to info@managedmethods.com, and we can put you in touch with Jose and Kyle if you have specific questions for them as well. Kyle, thank you so much. Jose, thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day too.